Welcome to part 4 of the Tiger Cycle series. In this part we're going to go through the chest, the arms and the shoulders, make them work together. And hopefully by the end of this part we should have a pretty good cycle. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel, go and watch parts 1, 2 and 3, and check out my other videos where I've got other cycles, other tutorials, and other tips and tricks for Maya and animation. If you've done all that, let's get started. Here are Maya, and we're going to start off with the left foot or the left hand and work on this sort of timing and the speed of this step. So the issue I've seen right now is that actually I'm landing too fast. I think really that the peel off is too quick. So it's a little bit fast, the peel off, and then it's also landing too early. So I think it can actually peel off and land about frame 17. This is when it's kind of landing at frame 17. So I'm going to lock down this key here, click S. I'm just going to delete frame 15 for now, delete it. And the second thing is happening, I think it's leaving the ground too early. So the reason I say that is because the way I mentioned in part 1 is how the back foot is going to kick the front foot or the front hand forward, right? But right now it's kind of happening together. I think it can be offset a little bit more, which means delaying the left foot. So let's go and look at this now. And I'm going to basically put this at, I'm going to keep this frame 4 pose. I'm going to keep it on the ground by keying it, setting the translation Y, and pressing X to 0. I'm going to match the, make sure the X is also the same for the translations. Now the shoulder is obviously having a bit of an issue here, so let's fix the shoulder for a bit. So the way the shoulder works, as you can tell, is that this pose is kind of pretty straight with a sort of slight bend at the elbow, and it is called the elbow, not the knee. And then we can reset this pretty easily by just bringing this backwards. And then also there's an issue here with the curl and the ball lift. Let's put this to 0 for now. We can fix it in a bit. And let's also try and work on this a bit more by bringing this back a bit. And I do think that we can actually reintroduce some of the ball lift, like this. So basically the toes are still on the ground, but the way that the tiger will step is that the wrist will actually be leading the action. So it's going to peel off and the wrist will drag the toe forward, will drag the fingers forward, which is quite hard to get on most rigs, including this one because it's not the best deformation. But you can kind of see, if you look at this from this angle, that the ankle here, or the wrist here, is going to move forward, and then the toes will sort of drag and peel off afterwards. So I think this pose is okay. Let's just lock this down by clicking S on everything. Cool. Right, so frame 8 is kind of still a little bit, I think actually frame 8 is okay. What we can do though is we can fix the shoulder. So the shoulder's going to drop. So we can basically bring the shoulder back a bit more. So this arm is a bit more bent. So the elbow is dragging more. And we will add some translations later, but for now I'm going to add a little bit just to get the idea of what's going on. I want to do this object mode. I think it's a bit safer, so we can see what's going on pretty clearly. So go to Control Shift, right click, and go to object mode. And I'm going to use translation Y for this one, and just bring this down a little bit, not too much. You don't want to, if you go too far, the rig will look really strange and break, and the textures will also break too. Just do a very subtle amount. Just imagine the shoulders going dropping down. That's what you want to feel like. We will polish this later though, don't worry. Now the second thing we need to do is I kind of already have it already, but the way that the tiger will walk, as I said, it's going to step round and in front. It also cut its hands. I'll show you what I mean with this reference. So you can see here in this reference here that actually it's going to be swiping through, and the toes kind of brush the inner toe of the other foot and the ground as well. They're very close contact. The reason for this is because animals and humans are lazy. They want to use as least amount of energy as they can to get through the road. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit, just in world space now, back to world space. Bring this down. And you don't want to do it too much, but I think we can curl the fingers a bit more. So actually cut it quite a lot, as much as we can. Yeah, I think that pose is okay for now. Cool. So click S on everything. And let's just play this back now at normal speed. Okay, that's actually looking pretty good. Now the next thing we need to do is try and get this sort of flick. So it kind of flicks up and it lands with the outer foot sort of first, which is actually going to be the hardest part to achieve, believe it or not, because of the way you got to look at all the different parts of the joints. You got to look at the ankle joint, the wrist joint, and the elbow joint. Make sure they're not popping or like being crazy. So we're going to polish this later, like I said, but let's try and get something pretty close. Ready? This timing is wrong. Let's go back to other reference. Okay, so here is the reference, and we got frame 16 or 17 is where it's landing. So there should be a rock value in your thing. I think we could add a little bit of rock just this way, tiny bit. And maybe also we can add a tiny bit of backwards rotation here. Just a really small amount. just to get that sort of feeling. And let's play this back now, see what happens. And let's also, so before we do anything, let's drag frame 0, make sure it's the same by going to frame 30. It should be the same, but just in case it wasn't. Send a check. So frame 0 is that, and frame 30. Yeah. Cool, okay. So let's look at this now. Okay, so the issue is we have to lock down this key, of course. I'm being silly. So frame 19, let's go to 19. Let's make the rock 0 as well. Like that. That should be better now. And also the curl as well. And the rotation X. Everything needs to be 0. And that should now be okay. Cool. It's getting there. There's definitely things we can polish. Especially in the shoulders, but also in the arc of the wrist as well. So let's look at the peel off a bit more. So the way it's going to peel off is that, like I said, it is going to do this motion, but right now the toes are in the ground. So the arc of the ankle or the wrist, I'll do it in the blue pencil. The arc we're going for, if you imagine I'm tracking the wrist of this joint, it's going to come up like this and then kind of down like that. That's the kind of pattern we're going for. Same as kind of a walk cycle for a human actually, which is different from the hind legs. So this is what we're going for, and this pose here is kind of when it's dragging on the ground. So the toes are kind of scraping the ground. So we're going to really try and get that arc quite nicely in, and then we can work on the back and forth of the side to side motion. So let's get the up and down motion done first. Let's delete this for now. So what we need to do is we're going to use a motion trail. So like before, like I did with the other rig, I'm going to use the Animate, but just so you can remember, it's animation and visualize, create motion trail. I'm going to use Animate like I said. I'm going to track the arc of the wrist first. I want to see this. See, already I can see the issue, right? So it's going to be coming at frame 6. I'm going to bring this just right up into the air, like that. And I can make this easier for myself by also fixing the shoulder, bringing this up slightly, keeping this like nice right angle shape. Cool. Maybe I bring this a little bit back as well. I want to try and get this nice smooth arc. Right now I haven't got that. So it's doing this motion, right? So I'm going to bring this back in space. And we're going to bring this down so the toes are just off the ground. That's a bit better. Go to frame 8, bring this up in space a bit more, just for this first initial pass. And then go to about frame 10. We can bring this down. That's a little bit closer to what we want. We can work on this a bit more in a second. Okay, so I have to make sure frame 0 and frame 30 are the same, which they don't seem to be. And I think also the issue is I need to fix the tangents as well. Yeah. Let's go and fix this. Select all your curves, go to A to make this a bit sort of flatter. Yep. And this one needs to be, because of course it's going to be coming out, we're going to fix this tangent as well. Let's make this like that, a bit flatter. And this one also make it so it's like this. This is going to make it really easy to see what's going on. And I might actually just bring this down a bit in space to make this curve a bit smoother. This one too, bring this up. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to show view infinity, which seems to be turned off. So view infinity, there we go. You can see what's going on now. Yeah. So this is the path of the back and forth motion. Let's play this now. Cool. The shoulder's breaking, but we'll fix that in a second. But the actual motion of the wrist, turn off the motion trail so you can see it a bit cleaner. Cool. Sorry, let's work on this side to side motion now. So because the wrist is turning in, what we can actually do now is work on this pivot control. I'm going to set a key on this back control here, which is called the PV foreleg. And I'm going to bring this out like this. If you remember from part 1, I set this to root space, so it won't be affected by anything that the IK controllers are doing. It's going to stay in space here. So now what happens is as it comes out, the elbow also shifts out a little bit. We can go a little bit more maybe. So it has a slight sort of natural sort of swinging through motion. This arc we're having going here. And let's also fix this pose for a second. Maybe we can bring up the translation Y a tiny bit. Bring this out more. So make the extreme here. This is the curve of the side to side motion in the red curve. Translation X. Let's play this again. Cool, I think that actually looks okay already. We can do some polishing things later with the fingers and the toes. But for the fist, the foot itself is looking better. Cool. Okay, let's work on the shoulder now to get this working together. So yeah, so this is broken, right? This is already hyperextended. So what we need to do is we need to bring the shoulder, and I'm going to use the red channel, which is the rotation X, and bring this back. So right now, if I delete these, you can see it more clearly. It's kind of straight with a slight bend in the angle, which means it's going to be basically keeping the leg pretty in a quite strong position. And when they're prowling, they can afford place them a bit more carefully. But even for a human, if you remember from your walk cycles as a human, your up pose is basically your leg sort of keeping straight and your body going over your leg. So what I mean by that is if I go to this pose here, for a human, the up pose, this is the leg coming through. This is the leg straight, right? This leg is very straight, right? That's the same thing for a quadruped. They have to keep that front leg kind of in a strong position and bring their weight over that leg. And that applies here to the shoulders and the arms as well. So this is the pose we have for frame 0. Let's drag this to the end, to frame 30, to keep it the same. To see it's the same, make sure to fix these tangents. You should do this as you go along because it does take time. There are plugins, by the way, that do this for you, which I do recommend looking for one if you do this quite a lot. I do use Animate for this, but I won't for this tutorial because I want to show you my non-plugin workflow. Cool. And then let's go to the frame where it lands, which is frame 18. And I want this to be a little bit more straight, sort of reaching out in front. So that's a key at this frame. And we're going to bring this forward now. And we can always bring this down in translation. So we're going to add just a little bit of translation. We can add more later when we're polishing to get that like shoulder movement. But I always want to work on the rotations first because they are more... Well, basically, if I move this a lot in translation, the textures really break. And that's because the rig is breaking. So you don't want to use it too much, just to get a subtle sort of pose. So when I have this kind of on the frame he lands, I have a straight leg with the shoulders down. And when he takes the weight, they're going to come up, right? To take that weight of the chest. So for carnivores, the chest doesn't really rotate much. It's all in the shoulders back and forth. Like for big cats, lions, tigers, all the same. Herbivores are different, and certain other carnivores like dogs are a bit different as well because they have less movement. But cats are really, really flexible, so it's going to be all in their shoulders and their scapula. So let's just clean up these curves as I go along, clean up the curves. So let's look at this now again. I think bring this even further forward. Oh, that's the chest. I want this small shoulder controller. Cool, bring this down. This is going to be a very back and forth process. And I think now we can see this line, we can bring this foot forward actually. So go to the foot control, go to the translation Z, and go to frame 17. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, not too much. And maybe I bring the shoulder down. There we go, like that, maybe. And I'm going to fix these two, so bring this one up. I might just delete this one. There we go. So this is kind of the curve you want, at least for this section at least. Let's look at this now. Let's look at this first step now. Okay, it's still popping a little bit. So let's make sure we copy these two curves. This is different, right? So I'm going to select frame 0 again, go to frame 30, key that. And I'm going to check that my frame 30 is the same. Yeah, it is the same. Cool. Cool. Okay, now let's work on the shoulder as it goes up. So the shoulder, of course, is going to take this weight, as I said. So now, as it's coming through, it's going to be dropping down. At about frame 20 here, you want to make sure this is just like a straight arm. Like I said, it's the same thing as the human going over their up pose. And this is basically the up pose, right, of the tiger. You see how straight this is and how this big bulge happens here. So we are going to do this using the translations, but we can make this a bit easier for ourselves by working on the feet first. So let's go to about frame 23. And for some reason, it's not quite on the ground, even though it's at 0. So what we can do, we can actually bring this down in space a tiny bit, just so you can feel that compression. And then we can go to the spread control, frame 23. We can spread the toes a little bit, so it feels even heavier. And then we can also go to maybe, depending on what we have here, let's go to ball lift. Yeah, ball lift, and bring this down a little bit. So basically, you can basically feel that weight kind of pushing into the ground. And then we go to the shoulder. I'm going to bring this up in space. I would go to world space for this. It does actually affect all the controllers because sadly, not sadly, is how it should work. This is the angle of the, we can do this. It doesn't look too bad actually. And if you want to be a bit more in control, maybe just do translation Y. I'm going to do all of them though, because I want to get a little bit more of like a directly up position like that. And this would definitely require tweaking into basically the very, very end of your shot, because there's so many things you've got to work on. And now this curve is a bit strange. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Yeah. Bring this up. Always make sure if your curves are strange, always click A. Well, my hotkey for this is D, so if I make this weird for a second, if I hit D on my keyboard, it goes to the same thing as this. Hotkeys are useful, you should use them. And this one D, there we go. Let's look at this now. Cool. Cool. So I think the issue now is really actually looking at this more sort of together is this belly is going up way too much. So just to make this less distracting, I'm going to take this curve. I'm going to fix these tangents for a start. In the last part of our video, we're going to go through all these tangents again one more time to check. I'm going to use my scaling key 0.8 to make this smaller. Go to 1 to make this even more clear to what's going on. There we go. Look at this now. Still quite a lot. I'm going to scale it manually using this command. Let's take it down to here. Okay, I think what's happening as well, it's the rotation of one of these controllers. Is this one? Yeah, rotation X. Let's soften this for a second. I think I'm going to scale this by 0.8. I'm going to bring this down in space a little bit as well. So up in space. There we go. Like a little bit less bulgy. There we go. That was, I think, after looking at the whole rig, to get that was what was being a bit strange. Okay, so there's a slight pop in the shoulder here, so I think we can fix this now. Okay, so what we can do now then to track this elbow, there are ways to make motion trails with geometry, as in with vertices, but they require plugins or locators, and I want to make it simple, so let's not do that. But what we're going to do is make a panel side by side, or basically make a side view of your cat side. Zoom out a little bit, and we're going to use the blue pencil or the grease pencil, and whichever version of Maya you're using. We can make this small for a second. I can't talk today. So use the blue pencil or the grease pencil, depending on what version you're using. And we're just going to basically track this with a frame by frame just marker. So I'm going to mark this here. Make sure also you're showing in the viewport showing blue pencil or grease pencil. And let's go maybe 2 frames at a time. Where's this pop section? Let's look at the pop. Okay, it's frame 0. So this is the way we're going here. Frame 0. Next frame. Maybe keep this here. Okay, there's the pop. That's where the pop is. So it's going from there to there, and then it's there. See how already I can find this pop? It's at frame 2 and 3. So I can fix frame 2, I think, using the feet. So what I can do is I can go into frame 2, and I can try and make this a little bit more soft. So let's look at it again. Yeah, so basically this is a straight leg, which is correct. And then this is also correct. Go into this pose. This is a good pose, but the transition is too quick. So maybe at frame 6, I'm going to bring this down in space. And I'm also going to bring frame 8 slightly down in space as well. Maybe also forward, just to get it softer. And I think also still frame 6 as well, a bit more. I can work on maybe we're going to fix the toes later in like maybe a next part of this video. Right now we want to make I really can't talk today. We want to make the overall limbs kind of working correctly. I think that's a bit better now. There's a slight pop. Maybe what we can do is go to frame 13, bring it up in space as well, because all the toes are dragging slightly there. A trick you can do to make it easier is go to frame 30, go to frame 60 now. So this is double your timeline. This way you can see how the transition works a bit more cleanly. So yeah, there is definitely a pop here. I think it is actually a frame, this part here, where it's going too fast between these two poses. So I think we can make frame 2 a bit softer. So I'm going to actually make the ball roll a bit bigger at frame 2, like that. I might also lift off slightly and rotate it down a bit more, just to get the toes on the ground. See what that looks like. Maybe this one bring up as well a bit more, rotate this back. Sometimes the graph editor is useful, and we need to also fix this. So let's go back into these curves, go one by one. So this one, we can put this back to D. There we go, go to the translations as well. This is fine. This is going to be strange because of course we have rotations involved. This is why it looks a bit weird, but this could be a bit softer. This could be a bit further down. This one, maybe bring this down a bit. This is why I said this video could take a long time, this part of the series, because it's really going back and forth between the ankle, knee, or ankle and elbow, or wrist and elbow, before you get something that isn't popping. I'm still popping here. I see what it is. Maybe look, here's the foot isn't happening. So the rotation X. Let's delete this key. Make it more natural, make this D as well. Yeah, that's better for the rotation. Now it's the translations we need to worry about. Delete this too, see what happens. Make this D. Maybe bring this up as well. Delete this one. Okay. So one thing will help us, I think, we can bring out this elbow a little bit, because right now it's slightly hidden. It will obviously compress into the skin, but using this controller here, we can bring this out a bit more. That's why I remember in part 1 I did hide this, as I said before, so we can kind of see this a bit more clearly individually. I think it's pretty close to being good. I think it's just that frame 4, 5, 6 area we need to work on with the shoulders, I think. So let's go and put a key at frame 2 and zoom into this, and then we can delete all these graph editor grease pencil things. So just delete all of them. Next one, delete. Delete. Next one, delete. The next one, delete. I mean, it's pretty close to being good to me. I don't think we need to do too much more to it. I think it's just frame, yeah, it's just frame 2, 3, and 4. This might be a part of the polish video, to be fair, not so much here. Let's play this back. But maybe I'm being too sort of, what's the word, hyper focused on this. No, it is popping. It is definitely popping. Where's the hype? Oh, I think maybe this thing is, yeah, this is different. Put the 0 in frame 30. Same. There we go. Okay, so that's better now. So that's kind of how that works. It's not perfect, but like I said, we're going to fix this in the polished part of the series, which is going to be probably next week, as in Monday. It is definitely popping still, but we'll fix that later. Okay, let's fix these times quickly before we stop. I'm going to basically copy the animation, and I'm going to call this part done, and then we can work on the connection between these parts all together, the legs, feet, and chest all together in the next part. So the last thing to do now then is just copy animation. Now this rig has different rotations for the shoulders, which means the shoulder copying and pasting won't work very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do the feet first, and then we're going to do the shoulders manually by yourself as a test, homework. So basically you're going to take the foot like last time, select all the controllers, and we're going to actually do the timeline here as well as easier. Right click and copy, go to the other foot, and make sure that you basically go to frame 1 and delete all the other keys, and then put in this and paste like that. It's going to be the same place, and then you're going to select everything, go to frame 15, right, and drag it to frame 15 like that, and then we can have the opposite animation of the feet. Now you see how the shoulder's completely broken, so what you want to do basically is go in, oh yeah, and the feet, of course, this foot is obviously opposite, so let's go in here again like on the other foot as well, and make this times equals -1. It's going to basically flip it. There we go. So look at this now. The feet are working a bit better. So the issue is now the shoulder, right? So anything you see in the shoulder, it's not too bad because we didn't, what's the word? The shoulder's not that sort of, it's not moving too much. But the reason why we can't copy the shoulder, I'll show you why, is if you select both of them together, and then you go to object mode, and you rotate them in up, they rotate opposite. And the same with back and forth, they rotate back and forth differently, which means that the orders are different, so copying and pasting won't work. And that trick, times equals -1, won't work either, because they're not actually offset by 180 degrees, they're offset by different values completely, so it won't work. There are plugins and scripts you can do to make this work, but maybe it's good homework. You should go in and try and fix this shoulder You get it as close as you can to the right side, or my left side, I should say. And mine isn't perfect yet, by the way, but just try and get something a bit less poppy with the elbow, because the foot should work quite nicely. Oh yeah, the rotation of this as well. We need to flip this to this side, don't we? So also go into the rotation Z, and we can just do the same maths. Times equals -1. Rotations normally work because they're basically opposite, flipped. There we go. So now we have that of the map motion for the feet, and we can just go in and work on the shoulders. So yeah, go home, well, state you're already home, go and work on the shoulder, and then hopefully by the next part we can start working on all those bits and bobs together. So the feet, legs, chest, belly, put them all together and make them all kind of more cohesive, and then we should be pretty close to finished. We've got the tail, which is really quick and easy, and then the neck and the head, which is also quite quick and easy, and then we can do some final polish and we're done. So hopefully got 2 more parts left and then we're finished. Cool. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.